This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Canna Health.
Hey cannabis consumers, have you ever consumed a cannabis product thinking it'll make you feel a certain way, but then it doesn't? Don't you wish you had a clear understanding of your own DNA so that you could make informed decisions about what type of cannabis products interact best with your system? Well, now you can with EndoDNA. EndoDNA is a simple DNA test that maps your entire endocannabinoid system and then matches that summary with a specific cannabinoid ratio and terpene profile that best aligns with your unique genotype. Imagine being armed with personal information when visiting a dispensary. You'll have the knowledge and power and capability to purchase products that best align with your genotype. Visit their website to purchase the EndoDNA Collection Kit and Endo Decoded Report at endodna.com/products and use the promo code CONNECT15 for a 20% discount. Again, that's endodna.com/products and use the promo code CONNECT15 for a 20% discount. The future of cannabinoid therapeutics is here with EndoDNA. Christina DiPaci, how are you?
Hey, Kevin, I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I gotta say, your last name is so fun to say. DiPaci. I want to do the Italian gesture. It's very Italian last name, fun to say. Congratulations on having a cool name.
Thank you. I think you're making my ancestors proud.
Well, you should be. They should be. It's a cool name. How are you? You mentioned that you're in North Carolina at the moment visiting family, but of course home is California.
Yeah. I'm traveling just for about a week to kind of get in some Christmas activities. Home is Big Sur, California.
That's right.
Yeah. So looking forward to going back.
Yeah, I don't blame you. The ideal place to have a cannabis farm, and yours especially, Paradiso, you're the founder and CEO, being one of the largest independent craft cannabis farms in California. Christina, you have 10 years under your belt in the cannabis trade. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience in the space and kind of the trajectory of where, you've landed and where you're at today?
Oh, I'd love to. So we've had a history in this industry, and so we're industry veterans, as some people like to say. But we've been cultivating for about 10 years. Our current operation, Paradiso Gardens, is based out of Monterey County, and we're just over 5 acres of greenhouses. And so we're able to produce consistent quality year-round using a combination of sunlight and artificial light. We have grow lights throughout the operation to create a really, really wonderful, consistent product that we use to package, eighths and quarters and pre-rolls and all the other things you can think of.
Yeah. And the packaging is beautiful. I checked out your website. And of course, at the end of this podcast, we'll give everyone the website address so they can look it up, and we'll include it on the different content that we promote. But I would imagine in your role, of course, you're the founder and CEO, but it sounds like you wear a lot of different hats, right? I mean, everything from compliance to finance. I mean, is there anything that you don't do within the operation, Christina?
I really don't like the sales part. I try not to deal with sales. I like the relationships with their, different buyers and dispensaries and things. So I tend to not do that, but almost everything else I kind of I leave my touch on and have some sort of input. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, no, I don't blame you. Not sales isn't for everybody. So I totally get that. But you mentioned 10 years in the cultivation game. So why don't you kind of talk about the origin story of Paradiso, how it all came to be, and how you came to be one of the largest independent craft cannabis farms in California, which is a huge, feather in your hat.
Yeah, absolutely. Me and my co-founders, we started out in New York. We're childhood friends. We grew up together. And we were watching a CNBC episode, and it featured the Emerald Triangle, and it was interviewing some growers, and at a certain point it said how much weed was, per pound was costing out there, and it's like 2009. And we were just like dumbstruck. We're like, I cannot believe it's so cheap out there. And
What was the
within,
amount at that time? Just curious.
it was like $2,800 a pound. And at that
Whoa.
point it was like 5,000 in New York. So it was this, massive price difference. And we're like, wow, we should go out there. And within, 6 to 8 months of that, we like ended up buying some property up in Humboldt County and starting our, well, I don't think we realized it would be such a long and um, kind of shifting process, and we would end up where we were. It wasn't like, the dream, I think, at that point. It was just kind of following like, oh, cool, let's do this.
Following your heart, knowing that there's an opportunity. And then Humboldt, I mean, there's no better place to kind of immerse yourself in this industry, especially within California, if you're getting started, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was such a really ripe time, I think, in like trendsetters of strains and understanding the whole flow of, cultivation and distribution. It was super important for us. And it was, I feel really fortunate because we were able to meet with like so many people who, they had homesteads up there. It was a lot more than just like we're growing weed. It was a whole lifestyle. It had a whole history. And so we were able to take advantage of being there and meeting people and learning more about, who did what and how we got here. And, the at that point it was not legalized. And so it was all about like the fight for legalization and how unfair the laws were and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was great. It was such a good educational experience to be up there.
Totally. I can't imagine. Yeah. And, I've had guests on in the past that are from the Humboldt County and still operate in that area. And I'm learning more and more about that area. So at the time, I know that it's a very tight knit community. And this is, like you said, before legalization. So when you and your friend first entered Humboldt to kind of get your start, were they open? Was the community receptive, or did it take some time to build up that trust?
I think we entered at a time where it was starting to build that trust. There was already, I think weed was making an economic difference. And so there was, a health food store in a random town of 1,500 people. And like, so there was definitely people who were owning businesses, and, they had their kids in school. And so it was becoming integrated. And, my experience is most of the people in the weed industry at that time were super friendly and very open and things like that. And so I think even more so it's like solidified, and the community is much more integrated.
That's
but at
good.
that point it was just starting. Yeah.
Got you. Yeah. So talk us through some of those first couple of years. I mean, you mentioned started with obtaining land. I mean, like, let's just jump into it. Like, at a high level, what does it take to run a craft cannabis farm?
I think the thread that ties all of our experiences together is persistence and determination. And it just takes a lot of persistence. Things constantly change. Even, so when we first started in Monterey, it was the beginning of the recreation regulations and their implementation. And so when we first started, they hadn't been passed. 6 months later, it passed. And so, you have to have this certain perspective of the world of like, don't get too comfortable because things will change. And you're just constantly changing shape to kind of deal with regulations or market trends or market, right now there's an oversaturation in product. And so the price is a bit lower. But I think you just got to be persistent throughout all of it.
Yeah, adaptability is kind of like the key theme there. It reminds me of that famous interview with Bruce Lee where he's like, be water, right? Like, take the shape of water being in a cup or in a tall glass or in a bowl or whatever it is, right? Just kind of adapt to the situation at hand. And that seems to be the ongoing narrative within this industry. I mean, that hasn't slowed down or changed, has it?
No. No, it hasn't. And I think there's a certain naivety to it where you think that it's going to change. And the reality is that it just doesn't change. We're in like an emerging industry that is coming out of legal, an illegal market into legalization where the federal government still has not legalized it. And so you got to be really adaptable. Things are not very smooth yet.
Yeah. I always try to put myself in the shoes or the mindset of a California cannabis business owner, because like y'all have been doing this a lot longer than most other states. But to your point, the federal illegality still stands, and other states are starting to come online and, regulating in different ways, right? And so like being a California operator and seeing all this take place, like what do you think the future of the California market looks like? I mean, do you think that over time the regulations and the laws in place will change and adapt to be more aligned to what the country's seeing, or is California going to kind of do its own thing? Like, how does this play out in your mind?
That's a great question. I'm very optimistic. So I really think that there's a bright future for the California cannabis market. It's really hard in California. You have not only your state regulations, but you have your local authority. And for us, it's the County of Monterey and, our Board of Supervisors. And we've been able to have tremendous success in communicating with them and having transparency of to like, this regulation doesn't make any sense. Like, please stop enforcing it. And so having that conversation has been essential. I think California went with this really aggressive over-regulation without, and there's understanding of why they did that. I get it. They had, already $1 billion cannabis market. And so they wanted to be inclusive. It's a huge state. But the effect was over-regulation and over-taxation that is like, it's kind of like being suffocated at, just like a slow, steady grip on your neck of just suffocating you every day. And
sounds lovely.
Yeah. And then you see other states where you're like, wait, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that.
Right. And you're like, why not? That's not fair. Like, what the heck? Right. Like, yeah, I can see.
Like we have 19 licenses. We're one site, one operation, but we have 19 licenses. And of that, we have 3 different state agencies. Well, that changed this year, but there's just all these different agencies. It's overcomplicated. And I remember I went to Arizona, and they had different dispensaries throughout the state. They had a grow similar to ours, and they're like, "Yeah, we just have 1 license." I was like, "What?
Well,
wow!"
And that's
it can
like,
be like that.
Yeah, like what? So 19 licenses. So walk us through like what you're regulated to be required to carry 19 licenses. Like, what are each of those licenses for?
So we have 1 nursery license, and then we have 15 cultivation licenses, and they each cover 10,000 square feet. And then we have a processing license, and so that allows us to dry our cannabis and then trim it. And then we have a distribution license, and in that license is where we test and package it and then ship it out. And we also have a manufacturing license, which is where we create pre-rolls and infuse pre-rolls.
Got you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, like I mentioned earlier, I did like look at the site, and man, your packaging is beautiful. The buds look very high quality. The flower is amazing. So let's talk a little bit about y'all's cultivation practices. Like what makes you differentiate yourselves from other, craft cannabis farms out there?
I think for us, because we're so large scale, we are really we're big producers. The thing that makes us craft is our thoughtfulness and attention to detail. especially when it comes to strain selection. And so it's one of the biggest things that I'm involved with, but it's our trialing program. And so we bring in 5 to 10 strains a month, and I'm constantly, like on Instagram looking at, I'm like, oh my God, check out this strain. How do we get, trying to figure out how to get cuts of things. And then we trial it out throughout our facility and make sure that it's, it trims well, it smells good, it has good cannabinoid content, it looks good, it's pretty. And then, lastly, how does it smoke, and making sure that, it checks all of those boxes. And so we end up being able to produce this product that the whole entire cultivation team, the whole processing team is involved, our packaging team is involved. So by the time it gets to like a pre-roll or going in an eighth jar, everyone is like really excited about it and really understands how much work it took to like end up with, this wonderful strain in a jar. But it's just like endless thoughtfulness and attention to detail.
Yeah, it's got to be like a rewarding experience to kind of see the final product be completed and, on shelves or ready to be sold. And you're like, hey, we were all a part of this, right? We were all part of that process. How long does that process typically take? Like you said, from ideation to research, you're on Instagram looking up these different strains to actually getting that strain, testing it out. Like, what does that look like, that time frame?
That's kind of a hard question. It's easier to answer when we get a strain in. It takes us about 6 months to be able to see it in the final package.
Got you.
And then from there, we need to be ready with enough mother plants or things, or have a better clone order if we're getting it from a nursery, to be able to ramp it dramatically. And so it often takes 12 months to be at like full production capacity of a certain strain.
Wow. And I mean, yeah, good to great things take time, right? And so you want to do your due diligence, like you said, ensure that all the right stakeholders are involved, in this case, your entire cultivation team, to make sure that that end product is where you want it to be. I know that sustainability is also a big focal point for Paradiso. So why don't you talk to us about the importance of sustainability in the eyes of Paradiso's operations?
Sure. So we use, I think, like the most sustainable grow method for large production of certain quality. So it's kind of like sun grown indoor, we're in controlled environments. The natural climate of where we are is really mellow. So it's, doesn't ever get too hot, doesn't ever get too cold. So you don't need large, air conditioners or things like that. And we really try to take advantage of the sun. We use supplemental lighting when the sun isn't, it's either cloudy or it's at a certain angle, like morning and night, or sunrise and sundown, I should say. And so we're able to produce year-round, very consistent, in a way that's using pretty minimal energy. And then that kind of led us to this idea of, what are our biggest things that we can kind of control, and where are the biggest places we see waste. And so it led us to our packaging. And so within our packaging, Paradiso has a little sister brand, Dovetail. And so we kind of challenged ourselves, and we were like, let's see if we can make this whole line sustainable. And so what it meant for us was it's either biodegradable or recyclable materials. And so we were really excited because we ended up using compostable jars for the eighths. And so the whole lid and everything, you can like throw it in and it will be gone back to dirt in 6 to 8 months.
Wow. I don't think I've ever heard of that. Compostable jars. That's really cool.
Yeah. It was really fun for us to be able to kind of explore that idea and make relations with the producer of it, because it's a factory, and they try to focus in different kind of sustainable materials, and so they're kind of playing around with these different things and being like, try this works, this is steady, this won't melt in the sun. And so it's really fun for us to see it grow, and as the years go on, to see how advanced they're getting.
Yeah. That's got to be a huge selling point for your consumer base is, the fact that you guys really lead with sustainability and, like you mentioned, biodegradable packaging. And speaking of the consumer base for Paradiso, what are your customers like? What is the typical customer look like? I mean, is there a specific demographic that y'all serve? I know that this plant touches basically everyone, right? But what does your consumer base look like?
That's a good question. I wish I could tell you. Um,
all across
it's
the
really
board.
hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard to know because so we don't have any retail licenses. And so that data basically stops at the retailer.
Wow.
And so we take a guess. We do what we think is cool. We're aiming for the it's a pretty broad. We're aiming for connoisseurs in our quality, but also our packaging is very approachable. And so we aim for newcomers too. And what we like to say is Paradiso is like a gift and it's a treat for yourself. And it's the escape for your everyday, kind of mentality. And then Dovetail is really basic. It's much more of a value brand. It's more affordable. And so I think that's very much targeting a connoisseur as well, or like a heavy smoker. But it's really, we're constantly kind of trying to dig up and find more and more insight as to like who is actually buying our product. Instagram is like our best tool that we have.
Yeah, Instagram can be very, very insightful for some of that data. So when you say that, you basically, what you guys do is you produce the product and then a retailer or a dispensary then has your product on the shelf. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So what is there like a common list of dispensaries that you're working with, or is it kind of just across the state of California?
It's across the state of California. It's really
Wow.
fun to be. We're in places that I didn't even know existed. So it's fun to like be like, where is that? Oh my God, I didn't know that was a town. And then we're all over San Francisco and LA and San Diego. We're in big shops too, but it's all over.
Wow, that's awesome. And now you got me curious. Now I'm interested. I'm like, I want to know y'all's consumer base as well. If you're spread out all over the state.
I know
That
it's one of our goals for 2022. We're revamping our website so we can drive more traffic there. And that will give us, that's the only glimpse that we can, or not the only, but that's another good glimpse that we can have to figure out who is like looking at our website and looking at our product page and try to hone in on that more and more.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, every year is about building and getting, utilizing these insights to make better formed decisions. That's what it's all about. So y'all are well on
Mm.
your way. Do you ever have plans to obtain that retail license and start selling your own product, or not at this time?
If something very convenient came in front of us, I think we would be interested. Um, for now, we're really focused on our cultivation and brand building and product creation. For me, it's one of the most fun and dynamic parts of my job, where it's like you're thinking of, oh, let's make a pre-roll this way and let's coat it in keef and let's put it in this packaging. If we use this material, can it look like that? I really, we've built a really good team to help support that. And so I want to keep that going before we kind of spread ourselves too thin.
Mhm. I can just see the passion just oozing out when you talk about the creativity side of it, Christina, and it makes me happy because I love to see people doing what they're passionate about and what they love to do. And I gotta say, we're definitely going to be looking at some of the merch that's on your website because my wife, she collects lapel pins, and I saw that y'all have like a big collection of just different really creative, awesome lapel pins for Paradiso. So we will definitely be looking at those.
Oh my God, amazing.
Yes. So you mentioned earlier when we started that you moved from New York to start in the cannabis space in California. Well, now
Hmm.
that New York is getting ready to go online with sales here fairly soon, do y'all have any plans maybe at some point to expand outside of the California market and enter a new market, or is California home for the time being?
We are another one of our goals for 2022 is to start our expansion into other states. And so that's definitely on the table of what we're looking at. And ideally, it's a brand presence instead of an operational presence. And so we're looking to partner with, really good operators and start to expand the brand presence in other states.
That's great. And I also know outside of sustainability that Paradiso does have a focus as well on social equity, right? Or restorative justice. And from what I've read, that you guys had a recent art auction collaborating with young Jake for the Last Prisoner project. Do you want to talk a little bit about that initiative?
Sure. We had young Jake as a friend, and so he made us this piece of art that was digital. He was painting digital a few years ago, anyway. And so we had this idea where we were like, well, let's just make it an NFT. And I didn't really know how to like even mint an NFT or what that really meant. And so yeah, we worked with him over the summer and we're like, can you update this and mint it for us? And it was great and it was really nice and collaborative. And then during one of this weed trade show that we do in California called Hall of Flowers, we promoted it there and we just auctioned it off and it was great. And so we gave all the donations to Last Prisoner Project, and it was really exciting. And it was kind of this idea where we're like, I don't know, like we're like, can this really work? And then it did, and it was great. We ended up raising a little more than $20,000 for them.
Wow.
And yeah, and so we're excited because we want to keep doing that throughout 2022 too. Just collaborating with different artists, promoting it, and giving the proceeds to Last Prisoner Project.
It's so awesome. And what like perfect time with, NFTs exploding and more people just getting interested in that space. What was the NFT? What was the art?
He paints using different emojis, and it was a picture of a nug.
He generally
does these portraits that are surprisingly very realistic, and they're kind of interesting because their detail is an emoji, and you're like, wow, that's crazy. So it has this big micro macro effect, and yeah, when we launched the brand, he made us one that was a weed nug, and it's really funny and cute. So
wow. I think I have it up on my screen here. I'm going to share my screen really quick, and let's just, for those that are watching this episode, is this the nug that you're talking about right here?
Oh my God, yes, that's the weed nug.
That is so cool. So yes, for those that are just listening and can't see this is a nug that is just, it's a compilation of emojis, and it looks amazing. Like it has detail that kind of shows trichomes and just this wild rad looking bud. It's really cool. And is this his other art here with, we've got like Steve Jobs and Edward
Billie
Snowden,
Eilish.
Billie
Yeah.
Eilish. He's even got
That's
the
Gucci
Island
Mane.
Boys.
He's got Island Boy. Yeah.
And these are all done with emojis. Wow.
Yeah, aren't they cool?
This is so cool, Christina. Well done. Yeah, what a great idea. I mean, so this is kind of something that you guys are going to continue to do and collaborate with different artists.
Yeah, it was amazing. We had amazing reception with it, and I was like, wow, we actually raised a good amount of money, so we were just very excited.
That's so cool. Well, next time you guys drop another NFT, I definitely got to check it out, and we've got to have you back on to talk about it. So that is really cool. I love the NFT space.
It's a whole different world. I feel like I'm just starting to really understand it.
Yeah, and I don't know anything about the mint process like you talked about, so maybe offline I can pick your brain and be like, well, what does that even mean? So I have lots to learn in that area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, as we wrap up, Christina, I want to give you the floor. This has been a really great conversation. I've enjoyed it. But I want, whatever's top of mind for you that you want to leave the audience with, feel free to do so now.
Oh, okay. What do I want to say? I think I want to say
I'm putting
if
you
you're
on the
ever,
spot.
yeah, if you're ever in California, please check us out. You can find us across the state at all different dispensaries. We have a store locator on our website, paradisogardens.com. You can also, we have a store locator on our Instagram, which is at paradiso.gardens. And yeah, we're looking forward to releasing more products that are beautifully crafted and created and well designed.
Well, keep up the great work. I really look forward to continuing to watch y'all's progress as this industry continues to rapidly evolve and change every minute.
Exactly. That is the name of the game, the evolution of it.
That's it.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I've had a great time.
Absolutely. Of course. We'll have to do it again. And thank you all for listening. Bye.